Hello, you've caught me playing Astro Bot and thinking wistfully about the 90s.
It's hard not to when you play a game that doubles as a PlayStation museum. Trotting past old hardware and PS1 cameos is like playing a game of the pointing Leonardo DiCaprio meme. Look, it's Psycho Mantis rumbling the DualShock with the power of his mind. Hey, it's Dart from The Legend of Dragoon, complete with pixelated hit points. Hey, it's the Intelligence Cube from Intelligence Cube.
Actually, I didn't play that one and had to Google it, but you get the idea.
The 90s were great, weren't they? In 1994, the PlayStation launched, and 30 years later, I'm still banging on about Crash Bandicoot, Final Fantasy VII and Tekken 3. But it wasn't just the games, was it? It was a different time, with a different way of doing things. Back then, if you wanted to like and subscribe, you had to find a person and tell them you liked them. And subscribing meant paying for magazines to be delivered to your house.
It's much easier now. You just press the little thumb icon. You can do that now if you wanted. But there are still some of the old ways I yearn for. So, permit me 10 minutes of back in my day. Here are 7 things only gamers from the 90s will remember.
First up, we've got game manuals. Remember these? Little books you could read on the bus ride back from the shops, fueling your hype for your latest purchase. These days, you just open your box and find health and safety precautions.
Or, if you're really lucky, a warranty policy. Important, yes, but hardly a page-turner.
The removal of manuals denies us some of life's simplest pleasures, ripping off the shrink wrap and taking a great big chemically sniff of that new manual smell.
Mould now, actually.
And then rinsing the pages for extra snippets of plot or gameplay tips or character art showing us what the smeary characters on screen were meant to look like. How anyone comprehended Metal Gear Solid without the printed plot synopsis and glossary is a mystery.
Outer Heaven? Yes, yeah, that's the heavily fortified nation founded in South Africa in the 1980s. I mean, any Metal Gear Solid fan worth their salt knows that.
Next up, memory cards, as handled by Astro Bot here, demonstrating the blowing technique often required to register one with a PS1. What does he expect using delicate hardware in a flippin' desert? I played mine in a hermetically sealed room and still had to empty my lungs into it to regain access to my Final Fantasy IX party.
Memory cards were a necessity, of course. You know, games in the 90s got cinematic and epic, and you needed one of these. You needed to save your progress to have any chance of scaling those mountains.
I knew a boy in school who got a PS1 for their birthday without a memory card and kept trying to play Final Fantasy VII with no saving. One death and he was straight back to the first reactor. Little did he know, he'd actually turned it into a roguelike years before Iron Man modes were a thing. He just had to do or die.
He died. I don't think he ever made it past Hell House in the slums.
For a device with just 1 megabyte of data, memory cards had surprising personality. Every save had an animated icon painting a picture of your gaming habits. Sometimes you'd find an old memory card at a car boot sale or rattling around inside a game case.
Because what better place to store your precious saves than rattling around inside a game case.
And it serves as a snapshot into someone else's gaming life. You pop in their memory card and see that they only made it 12% of the way through Crash Bandicoot, or discover that they named their cloud Poop and never made it out of the Shinra Tower.
Well, they still got further than the boy without a memory card.
As modern games harness the heft of modern tech, it makes sense that digital actors begin to capture every atom of the real human behind them. But long before stars were covering themselves in ping-pong balls in the name of art, I was playing 100-hour JRPGs where words went unspoken, bleeping and blooping into speech bubbles, and I kind of miss them.
Where modern games invite you to lean back and grab the popcorn, text boxes asked you to lean in.
Like the way that reading a book forces you to build your version of the characters, speech boxes let me fill out their personalities and colour outside the edges. My version of Squall sounded like this, while my version of Rinoa sounded like this, and that was fine.
How can I love?
The only time it goes wrong is when they remake games from the 90s and you realise your version isn't quite the same as the original creator's vision. I mean, apparently Kate Sith is Scottish. In my head, he was always from Somerset.
I'm so excited. Right or wrong, I'm still the same old me. I'm actually from Somerset, so it's okay that I'm doing that accent. Next up, those gorgeous black CD-ROMs used for the original PlayStation. Were video games going through their goth phase? Either way, they felt so distinct and mysterious, all those weird and wonderful worlds swirling in that inky abyss. At a time when our homes were beginning to get cluttered with CDs and DVDs, there was no mistaking a PlayStation disc.
Imagine taking Tekken 3 into school to show off to all of your friends and accidentally taking in your mum's Simply Red CD instead. I mean, you're not going to make that kind of mistake with a black disc.
And who could forget the thrill of multi-disc games? Adventures so stuffed with movie-grade CGI that you needed 4 discs just to contain the whole adventure. 1 disc less and the story wouldn't make any sense.
Although even with 4 discs, my puny little brain struggled to keep up with what was going on in Final Fantasy VIII.
Okay, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth brought back some of that multi-disc muscle in style. But I'll always feel nostalgic looking at my PS1 Final Fantasy collection. 3 games across 11 discs.
Of course, it also meant the inevitable moments those discs would go missing. You know, imagine getting all the way to the end of the Forgotten City of the Ancients in Final Fantasy VII. You see that on-screen prompt asking you to insert disc 2, so you excitedly open the box to reveal Barbie Explorer. Mum!
If you wanted to be in the know in the 90s, you read video game magazines. Okay, by the time they hit the newsagents, they were full of month-old news, but who had the internet back then to know otherwise? Dial-up was so pricey, it would cost a tenner before your modem could even suck half a JPEG of Gex down the pipes.
So magazines were where it was at, full of colourful reviews, endless pages of rankings, and a bunch of in-jokes, which, to be honest, I was never really that much of a fan of. Oh, hi, Delsin.
I'd count down the days to the E3 issue of official PlayStation magazine, or Video Game Christmas as we called it, seeing 100 new games puked over the pages. Mags also introduced us to masterpieces that would become cornerstones of our personalities months or years before anyone else knew they'd be cool.
It says here some guy named Kojima's made a game where the boss makes your DualShock wobble with his mind.
Sounds pretentious.
And when you finished devouring the mag's words, you desperately tried to get your own in there, writing in endless letters like an absolute obsessive. Dear Games Master, could you send me disc 2 of Final Fantasy VII because my friend replaced it with Barbie Explorer and that game doesn't have the same tactical depth.
He never wrote back.
Magazines also gave us one of the other sacred artifacts of the 90s, the demo disc. When you were a child, this was the golden ticket to the chocolate factory. You maybe owned 4 or 5 games, a new one for Christmas, a new one at birthdays, and suddenly, here's up to 10 at once. It's like dining at one of those restaurants with a fancy taster menu.
Madam, to begin, Chef has prepared a light Ridge Racer Type 4 with a dash of Bomberman World, followed by a cut of Mr. Domino, garnished with Urban Chaos, and to accompany that, International Superstar Soccer Pro.
And what year is the ISS Pro?
It's a 98, madam.
Ah, yes, excellent.
And it didn't matter if it was just the opening level or like a 10-minute gameplay loop. I could play a good demo for longer than some actual full games.
How many hours did we spend running up Georgia Street in Siphon Filter, giving enemy goons enough taser to turn them into steak? How do you like your goon? Rare? Medium, well done, flambéed? For some people, this is Siphon Filter, a game about a random angry guy setting men on fire in a hotel. And how many look fondly on Broken Sword because they never got out of the demo's Parisian streets and met that wretched goat puzzle?
And that's before you get to Metal Gear Solid, arguably the most famous game demo ever made. Official PlayStation Magazine, issue 42. I mean, I must have played this demo so many times. Like, I know that opening dock level like the back of my hand, to the extent where, you know, I could probably guide new players through those levels. I think I'd be really good, really patient.
Man, phone me then! Just running controls.
Living in the pre-internet age also opened the floodgates of misinformation, because that certainly doesn't happen in the internet age. Which brings me to the final point on this list: ludicrous playground rumours.
Without the internet to hand, people spouted all sorts of nonsense, but that was almost part of the fun of games in the 90s. You know, it spoke to their mystery and potential.
Did you know that if you collect all the licenses in Gran Turismo, you can actually leave the track and then it becomes an open world game?
So if Lara Croft runs round her swimming pool 4 times and then does a sideways flip into it, you can play the whole game as the butler.
Did you know that if you breed 2 S-Class Chocobos in Final Fantasy VII, there's a small chance a Silver Chocobo will hatch, and that one has the capabilities of exploring space?
Of course, in the age of Google, we all know there's no such thing as silver chocobos. Who'd be stupid enough to believe that?
I didn't want to explore space anyway.
And those are 7 things only gamers from the 90s will remember. Actually, that last point reminds me, I've got a rumour for you. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel and then leave a comment about your favourite 90s memory. You may wake up tomorrow 5% more attractive than you are today. Don't Google it, just do it. And I'll see you again next Friday at 4 PM, you gorgeous bunch. Bye for now.
PlayStation